Most bands in the glam era needed 4 guys in spandex to produce results. On the other hand, there's this one other group that more people should have been paying attention to in the late 80s, XYZ. A band that could hold their own sonically against just about anyone in the glam era. However, they had a secret weapon in their lineup, Marc Diglio. He's the guitarist who looked at the conception of their second album, Hungry, and thought, yes, I shall be the entire workforce. He's everywhere on the album. No, he is the album. Composed every track, wrote and played all the riffs, all the solos, even played the bass. Probably drew the album art and drove the tour bus too. It's almost like Big Glam caught a glimpse of grunge coming over the horizon and said, deploy the prototype. So let's take a closer look and see what makes this guy tick. Let's first rewind to 1989, where things were very different for XYZ. Their debut wasn't a one-man project at all. It had a full lineup, a French frontman, Terry Ilous, and most importantly, they were Dokkened in the studio by the man himself, which meant the record came out sounding, well, like Dokken. Polished, catchy, you could practically taste the hairspray. He apparently sang backing vocals on the album because he didn't like how the other guys harmonized, and there were also some alleged issues he had with Terry's accent. Some reviews even started calling the band XYD because of how prominent Don's style was on the record. From there, they got some MTV recognition and broke top 100 for hits like Inside Out and What Keeps Me Loving You. They had some really great tunes on that album. But the second record, Hungry, that's something else entirely. That's the Marc Diglio project. It's where they took back the reins and let the guitarist's real personality shine. And the shift is undeniable. You're going from a band molded by a producer to a band that truly finds its own sound. It's a lot less polished, a lot heavier, and frankly, a lot more interesting. It's the sound of a band that finally got to sound like themselves. The results? Well, with grunge taking the spotlight, it really didn't catch the recognition relative to what it deserved. Which is really annoying, because check out these riffs. Just unapologetically badass riffs. The kind of thing you'd put on if you were about to go physically fight your landlord or something. And he's absolutely mashing those strings with his fretting hand. Doubles as a fantastic workout for your bones and your nerves. For a guy that was trying to get a raw, honest sound, Marc Diglio's setup was pretty minimal, but curated. He used a couple guitars on Hungry, mainly his Taxi Yellow Super Strat, what looks to be a Jackson Charvel Sandemus from the mid-80s. Excellent choice, but that wasn't the main event in my opinion. That honor belongs to this one right here, a 1981 Charvel Pre-Pro model. With that minimalist config and finish, you have a one-of-a-kind shred workhorse. The irony, though, is that despite its perfect look and feel, he never apparently fully jived with the sound. There was just some little something that never quite clicked for him. So, in conclusion to that relationship, the guitar started its second chapter in Mick Mars's hands, where a neck pickup was routed in for some reason. Because everyone knows Mick Mars is clearly famous for his non-aggressive tone and very smooth lows. Don't get me wrong, I love the neck pickup sound, but this little project sort of transformed it into some kind of stock photo looking guitar. And it's a real shame too, because its vivid red finish aged into this beautiful red-orange gradient that made it even more of a one-of-a-kind, likely due to UV exposure or the nature of the red aniline dye. It's apparently now in the hands of some other collector that posted about it in a deep forum. Looking behind the guitars on Hungry, Marc drove an incredibly unique Mike Morin hand-wired point-to-point preamp. It had a highly modded Marshall-inspired circuit with tons of available gain and EQ options. Think Jose mod and saturated high-gain Soldano or Mesa Boogie tones. My wallet started to sweat when I saw a listing on Reverb, but fortunately for it, it's gone. Same goes for this natural Jackson Charvel he allegedly owned. Very Nuno Betancourt. Well, that's what I thought at first until I saw this. It's actually his old yellow one that was sanded down. Some things I'll just never understand. Marc, what are people doing to your guitars, man? Anyway, he took that preamp as his main and ran it through the power section of his 74 modded Marshall JMP. I was showcasing some of his riffs earlier with my rig, but check out how this all actually sounded isolated on the album. So much bite to that. Honestly, I think this could be the most intense guitar tone in all of Glam. Let's now take a look at the first solo I heard from XYZ that really sold me, Face Down in the Gutter. Those crushing riffs from earlier are deserving of some crushing solos, and Marc delivers. He's well versed in all the classic 80s shred techniques, but let's hone in on a couple more standout ones you can hear in his playing. He targets a sort of Mixolydian approach on these climbs to give a bit more life to it, in contrast to some of the more common natural minor runs for solos in this era, which can sometimes feel a little sterile. And here's a pretty big head scratcher. He hits this string-skipped sweep tap thing that I can't quite figure out without getting a lot of unwanted string noise. A lot of hammer-ons from nowhere. Marc, if you're listening, would love some guidance here. Let's try a take. So, after the release of Hungry, the original lineup didn't last long. Marc Diglio and the drummer Paul Monroe left in '92, likely worn out by label politics and the push to chase trends. And being label mates with Alice in Chains, Marc could already see the writing on the walls. Stepping away from the scene, he dove into blues and slide guitar, collected vintage gear, and lived more of a musician's life outside the spotlight. Meanwhile, Terry and Pat Fontaine found a different lane together as the Vagabonds, an acoustic project blending their rock roots with flamenco influences. And recently, Marc's been re-emerging on YouTube with his own channel, Diggs & Company, where he's sharing new music, stories, and the kind of insight only a guy who's been through it all can offer. So while it might feel like XYZ's story ended after their one shot at creative freedom, their core members are still out there doing what they love. And honestly, is that not the real definition of success? Continuing to create even after the spotlight fades. For players like me, that's inspirational. So with that, thanks for listening. Hit subscribe if you want more deep dives like this, and check out the description for more XYZ resources. One more direct shout out to John Tallman of Session Solos. I really wanted to do this video on Marc, and I probably wouldn't have been able to dig up nearly as much without giving your interview with Marc a watch. That must have been really something to have the opportunity to sit with him and pick his brain. Thanks.